Hey guys, how's it going? It is Kara here with another Awaken Chaos Era video, and in today's video, we're going to be breaking down the top 6 CC/disruption characters here in Awaken Chaos. And before we begin, I do want to say, last night saw the Batman. It was like day 2 of the release. Pretty awesome. I'm curious, let me know in the comments below what you guys thought about it, if you've already seen it. I know this is like super early, but amazing movie. Not going to spoil it here. Please don't spoil it in the comments, but very good movie. Now with that out of the way, let's actually get into the video here. So the effect we're talking about here in this video is going to be crowd control, and specifically AoE crowd control. And there's only a few characters in this game that can do this, and 4 of them directly in the kit. 2 of them are going to get a little creative, and we're going to have to apply some gear sets. There's still some of the meta choices for this type of effect. So the first one, we're going to start with most accessible to least accessible. And I would say the most accessible is going to be MELIZZA. But this is probably the worst one because she's not guaranteed to do this. Her passive here is when she's unascended, attacks have a 30% chance to apply frozen to the target for 1 turn, plus 10% per negative effect on the target. So eventually, if you just could stack a ton of negative effects, which is just unrealistic, you can make this a 100%er. So frozen is one of the best debuffs though, where target unable to act and takes 50% more damage from all sources. Attacks on the target have a 50% chance to remove the effect. So you're going to want to nuke the guy and get him out of there. So her basic deals 50% damage to the enemy with a 20% chance to apply defense down. It goes up to 50%, but as you can see, a lot of her kit is just not guaranteed, which is a bummer, because I feel like if there's one move on her kit that made it where you could guarantee the frozen, I think it should be a lot better. Because even if you ever ascended, it's only 50%, and you do get 15% per negative effect, but still you need 4 effects on there to ever have this be 100%. And there's just really no way to consistently land that many effects to be able to do this. Let's talk about her ultimate here. Deals 80% damage to an enemy. Damage scales with the number of negative effects affecting this target. She only has A tier attack, and it's only 100% modifier. So unless the scaling made it absolutely insane per negative effect, there's just no way for this to ever really hit that hard. And then lastly, deals 80% to an enemy if the enemy is affected by a negative effect. Grants shield to this character for 2 turns. She's going to be the first one. If you don't have any of these other options, I would go with her. If you're looking for some CC, ideally she would come in either before or after your main booster. So like Windrex, she's going to come in right after, CC them all, and then the rest of the people are going to nuke them. So now let's go to a different one. I think this is one of the ones that I would actually consider leveling at the moment. And it's going to be VIRGIL. He ended up just getting buffed, so his debuff is a little better off his passive here. But the main point of him is going to be his ultimate. Deals 100% damage to all enemies, but applies silence to the target for 1 turn and grants 2 rage. Cool thing about him, A tier speed. So he's like, as an initiator, good base speed is a great base set to have because you're wanting him to go fast. And being able to gear him fast easily is fantastic. And we have his A2 here, applies silence as well. I do like having these characters have multiple ways of CCing, as we'll get into some of these other ones where their A2 also CCs. It's really nice to have it on multiple parts of their kit here. And then lastly, this is also a good effect too, especially for what he's doing. You're going to be building him with a high focus anyway, which is his A1, deals 70% damage to an enemy and removes 1 of their positive effects, so grants 1 rage. Let's talk about his trait. So grants this character a 20% chance to apply arcane sanction to the target for 1 turn at the end of the enemy's turn. This character will convert 4 rage at the end of their turn to a bonus turn. 20% chance to apply, and then if you have him ascended, grants this character a 40% chance to apply arcane sanction to the target for 1 turn at the end of any enemy's turn. So constantly, there's a 20 or 40% chance of this maybe being applied to an enemy as they go. So then Arcane Sanction restores 10% of the max health to the caster, while this character takes damage equal to 20% of max health and suffers silence for 1 turn upon casting any ability with a cooldown. So he's the caster. So he's going to gain 10% of his max health when he takes damage. This is for longer form content, because normally when you're going to be CCing people like this, you're trying to get them out of there pretty quick. This is going to be arena offense. This is going to be Void Tower, where they either, in this case scenario on this Void Tower, they stun you after a certain amount of time. But in other ones, they just hit so hard, you're trying to get them to not use their ultimates, not use their specials, and then try to kill them ASAP. Also in this one, if you can control them, then you reduce their defense because they get defense up. You control them, then they're not going to have that 50% defense boost. So that's another reason why you'd want an AoE control here. I think this is one of the better heroes at doing this. I like it because, yes, it's a silence. There's better ones. Stun would be better. Taunt would be better in my opinion. But it is 100%. So I like that a lot. And he's fast. So And it's not like he's squishy. At least he has B tier health and defense. Ideally he'd be tankier, but he's already providing a lot for you. I think it's fair that he's a little squishy, or not as tanky as he could be, I should say. Next, this is one of my favorite ones, if not my favorite, is going to be LUNAR MELIZZA. And the reason why she's so good is, so first of all, her typing. You don't have to worry about deflections too much. She's not going to be in a bad type disadvantage. And she also has 100%er here, where you have a 100% chance to apply taunt for 1 turn with a up to 40% chance to apply taunt for 2 turns, which is amazing. It locks him down for a very long time. She has A tier health and defense, so she can actually take those hits, especially if you build her right. B tier speed at least, so she's not slow, but you would have to invest quite a bit of speed gear into her to make sure she goes first. Ideally, she's going to go second. You have your Windrex go first, speed her up. And then ideally, she's going to be fast enough to where with that speed boost, if your Windrex goes first, she's going to overtake their Windrexes and be able to CC the whole team, or just fast enough to be able to beat all the other members in Void Tower if you're going to be using her in Void Tower. So a lot of this overlaps between like Arena Offense and Void Tower. On the special here, deals 80% damage to an enemy and applies stun for 1 turn. The ability's cooldown is reduced by 1 when attacked. So it's a 6-turn cooldown. She is taunting. It is kind of a bummer that she has like no way to do a bonus turn or something like this, because these is kind of like an anti-synergy here, whereas you need to ult. This is a 6-turn cooldown, but then right here, it's almost like you want to stun first if you want to take advantage of this to be able to stun again. So it's like stun, but mainly why you're taking her is to be able to do this big AoE taunt. In longer content, probably in Void Tower, this might actually come up useful, where as she gets hit, it's going to reduce this, or where you might have stunned, and then your taunt comes up, and then you'll be able to taunt them and then force them all to attack you. So then your stun will come up by the next time she comes through. And then lastly, she has immune on her A1 here. And then her trait is upon the death of an ally, reduces the cooldown of this character's ultimate ability by 1 turn. So maybe this could be useful again in Void Tower. If people are dying, you have Mythasia on your team. You could be able to kind of combo this. People die, cooldown goes down a bit. You can taunt and then be able to taunt first and then revive everyone to be able to actually keep them alive, because sometimes you revive them all and then they just die immediately after. Whereas if you actually have some CC here, that might not necessarily be the case. So easily one of the better ones. This is probably my go-to character at the moment when it comes to a CC character, whether it be for Arena Offense or for Void Tower. But now with some buffs here to Tia, so I'm thinking maybe depending on the situation, I might choose Tia over LUNAR MELIZZA. There's actually an option there, whereas before I just thought she was the best choice out of all these guys. Let's find Tia here and break down why I think she might be better in some situations. And mainly it comes down to the buff that they did for her ultimate. Right? It used to be 50%er all the way through for Frozen, whereas now the target is guaranteed. So deals 120% damage to all enemies when booked, increases the damage to the main target to 50%, and applies Frozen for 1 turn. 50% chance to apply Frozen to other enemies for 1 turn. Chance to trigger increased to 80% if the enemy is affected by Frostbite. So Frostbite, this is her passive. Minus 10% speed at 5-6 applies Frozen. So she has a passive way of applying it too eventually. And then here's her passive here. So applies Frostbite to the enemy for 2 turns at the end of the enemy's turn. At 5-6 applies Frozen. So it's slowly building that they're going to get Frozen. And Frozen is the best debuff out of all these, in my opinion. I think, depending on the situation, it's better than Stun, because you don't really need to attack them until you're actually trying to kill them. Like, a lot of my arena teams are boosting one character up and nuking them, and this might actually be worth it now because of the nerfs to arena offense, not being able to do 2 spells in 1 round. Yeah, we might need this extra 50% boost to damage to be able to consistently get people out of there. Yeah, so I won't be able to CC all of them, but Frozen is a pretty insane debuff to make sure at least the damage is coming through. If you can line up your characters right, make sure they all go before the enemy, and then you'll have Frostbite to be able to actually, kill someone here and do enough damage, because that's a big issue of arena offense, is that the characters are just so tanky that they're, you can CC them, do whatever, but you're not going to be able to actually get them out of there. So this might be something that used to consistently kill them. And then lastly, we got the A2. So deals 150% damage to an enemy and applies 2 seconds of Frostbite for 2 turns. You got a character that has a good passive, so you can consistently apply Frozen longer, kind of like how VIRGIL, how his passive slowly ramps up based on the enemy going, and then will apply Silence. Whereas in her case, eventually he's going to apply Frozen. And then in the meantime, you actually get a reduction of speed, which is pretty great too. And it's a percentage based reduction to speed, which I like a lot. So it's always going to be relevant. So I think with this new buff to make her consistent, because I was thinking before combining her with like a rebel set, because then you have the 20% of the rebel set for a stun. You'd have the 50% chance coin flip on all 4 enemies, or in some situations 5 enemies, to get a frozen air. But it just wasn't consistent enough. You couldn't rely on it. Whereas now I can always at least choose one target. And I think that alone is such a massive benefit to making this work, in my opinion. So I think she's definitely moved up a lot of ranks in how good she is. Especially, I'm going to really consider using her for arena offense because of that. And then now let's actually get a little creative here. These are the characters that people use. I haven't pulled them yet, but people use these in rebel sets a lot. They're kind of used in the same way as these initiator CC characters. And I think the most popular version of this is going to be Awaken. And the reason how we can do this, how we can pull this off, is not built into his kit, but what he does have is this trait here. So at the start of the round, deals true damage equal to 5% of this character's max health for all enemies. So what you can do is just put this guy in a rebel set, and then before anyone can act, you have a 20% chance to apply a stun. And then all of his abilities also have CC, and they scale off his HP, so he's going to actually be able to hit pretty hard even though he's super tanky. Then they all have a 20% chance to apply stun. So it's just all built into his kit now, that every round you're going to be AoEing everyone with a chance to stun them. And then every time you go, you have a chance to single target stun them as well. So because all his moves are single target. So removes all positive effects from an enemy, deals 100% damage to them, and applies silence for 2 turns. Then with the rebel set, 20% chance to stun them. And then damage scales with this character's max health. This another one here, deals 100% damage to an enemy and recovers 30% of the damage dealt as health. Grants max health up for 2 turns with a 20% chance to stun them. Yeah, he becomes actually pretty nuts once you put the rebel set on him. And then he's good on offense, just on any offensive game mode, whether it be Void Tower, whether it be Arena, and he's an absolute nightmare on Arena defense. So you pull this guy, he's easily one of the most versatile, best characters in the game, but really want to put him in that rebel set to fully unlock him, in my opinion. Maybe there's other sets out there, but I really think that the rebel set is probably the best for both worlds when it comes to using him. And then next is going to be another dark legendary in IMOGEN, and she has this passive here. When an ally attacks, launches a joint attack that deals initial damage of 30%, which decreases with each bounce. This consumes 1 stack of Moonlight. And then, so what happens is she's going to bounce, and her passive is allowing her to attack out of turn and hit everyone. And so in this situation, you're not going to really care about her damage too much. You're just going to be trying to hit everyone, and you get that 20% chance to proc rebel set stun. That's another way to be able to constantly have that threat of being able to CC these characters. And then especially if you can combine them, Corrupt Awaken and her, then you're going to be proccing the 20% chance to stun so often that it's going to be pretty often that you're actually going to be able to stun these characters and really control them and slowly be able to beat them. So I would love to be able to try this. I think this would be a lot of fun to be able to try both of those characters and be able to use that as a way to win in Void Tower. At the moment, I'm just using a whole bunch of AoE nuking characters with LUNAR MELIZZA as my CC, but it'd be fun to be able to try other ways to be able to do this. And I think both of these characters are really good at doing it. All right, guys, well, that's going to do it for this list. Let me know in the comments below what your guys' thoughts are on these heroes, especially if you guys have actually used them on your account. And with that, guys, I am out. Peace.